Okay, now in the question, how do you prepare a sermon? We're at the moment, not just before the sermon, like the last 30 seconds, and not all of life, but one day, set aside. That's generally what I did. I set aside a day. It might take me 8 hours. I might have to go till 2 in the morning if the text is hard, but I generally set aside Friday for my sermon preparation. That's totally at your discretion. My question is, what are we doing with the text as we try to create a message for our people? So we pray. We've prayed early in the morning. We've covered the day with prayer. And now as we begin to work on the text, we are pouring prayer out over and over again. Help, Lord, help, help, help. Time and time again, as we bump into problems, this day is saturated in, God, I need your illumination. I need to see what's here. I need to see what my people need that's here. I need to see ways to talk about it that's here. I need help with clarity. I need help with spiritual submission. I need help with my own sanctification. We pray like crazy in the preparation hours. And then, if you know the original language, put it on the screen or open your Greek or Hebrew. If you don't, do it in English, a good literal translation like the NASB or the ESV or something like that, and slowly start to read it. You might even want to write it out. I have developed a habit. I'm going to show it to you. You don't have to use this at all. There's nothing especially holy about this, but I fold a piece of paper, take a piece of paper like this. This is scratch paper. I never throw away paper that has a blank side. So I've got a file of scratch paper. I fold it in half. I put it in front of me. I've got the text here or on the screen. And now this half sheet of paper is now a scribbling pad. It's for random questions and ideas. I read, I write down a phrase. A thought comes to my mind of what that word might mean. I write that over here. A question comes to my mind. I write that here. I go to the next phrase. By the time I'm done with 2 or 3 verses, this is a mess. I brought along a bunch of them here. There they are. You can see how messy they are. Just things like this, like that one there. I got these out of the waste can just before I came over here to do this video. Here, you can see these are all scrap paper that I'm done with because of message preparation. So you put that little sheet of paper there, and here's the reason. You're going to be getting ideas as you read. You need to jot those down. As you jot them down, believe it or not, more ideas come to your mind. They do. Just jotting down some insight will cause you to get another idea. You need to get that one down quick because it'll leave your head if you don't. By the end of the text, you got this big, messy half sheet of paper or whatever method you use, and you are circling this and drawing an arrow up here to this one. And you're pointing out that, oh, he repeated that, and oh, he said that differently here. And when you're done with all that scribbling and doodling, you might see a main point that you want to make, or an order that you want to use in your sermon. Now, the point of all that is to discern the meaning of words, discern the meaning of phrases, discern the meaning of the logical connections and the flow of the text so that you can decide what the main point is. For example, where James says, the anger of man does not work the righteousness of God. You need to ask, as you're writing it down, righteousness of God, circle, question mark. What does righteousness mean? That's what I mean by words. And you might then quickly do a quick word study of James's use of righteousness. That's safer than using Paul to interpret James. And then you circle righteousness of God, and you want to know, what's the phrase mean? What does of God mean? Righteousness God produces, righteousness God has, righteousness that God imputes. What does of mean? And you need to know the meaning of a phrase. And then you notice that he had said earlier, how does it go? Don't be quick to speak, be slow to anger, slow to speak, for the anger of man does not work the righteousness of God. And you realize that whole clause, the anger of man does not work the righteousness of God, is a ground for not being quick to speak, but being slow to speak, slow to anger. And so now you've got a structure of a clause supporting a point, and you realize, okay, I need to show my people not only the meaning of this word righteousness, not only the meaning of the phrase righteousness of God, I need to show how this clause is the support for why they should be slow to speak and slow to anger. All of that happens as you're doodling and drawing lines and getting ideas. So that's my approach. I don't say it has to be yours, but I find that a lot of young guys, they just stare at a text and I don't even know what to do. I don't know what to do. And I'm saying, get a piece of paper and start jotting down what you see as you write the text, questions, answers, connections, looking up this word righteousness. Oh, I saw this in chapter 3, and you put that down, and ideas are happening, and you've got a place to record them. You may have 3 or 4 of those little half sheets before you're done, and now you want to know, okay, what's the main point of the text? Now, if you know how to do what we call arcing or phrasing or sentence diagramming, and you've got the time, this is a great place to do that, because all kinds of light will be shed on the meaning of words, on the meaning of phrases, and the logical connections if you do this thing we call arcing. But we won't talk about that here. In my book on preaching, I got lots of a whole appendix on how to do arcing. My point here is the main point of the text is that point which is supported or explained by everything else in the text. That's what I mean by main point. And the question arises, does the main point of the sermon that you're going to now construct need to be the main point of the text? Now, I might get in trouble here, but my answer is no. Let me try to show you what I mean. Let's take a text like Romans 1:15-17. It goes like this. Watch the logic. And see if you can figure out the main point by the definition I just used. I am eager to preach the gospel to you who are in Rome. For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ. For it is the power of God unto salvation to everyone who believes, to the Jew first and also to the Greek. For in it the righteousness of God is revealed from faith to faith, as it is written, the just shall live by faith. You got 4 propositions. All of them are connected by because. So the main point is which? I'm eager to preach the gospel. Because everything in the text supports it. That's my definition. If you got a different definition of main point, that's okay, but just be clear. My definition of main point is the point in the text that everything else is supporting or explaining. And clearly the main point is, I am eager to preach the gospel because, ground, I'm not ashamed of it, because it's power, because righteousness is revealed in it. All these are subordinate to that, and guess what? They're more important. The main point is not the most important thing. The main point is what hugely important things may be supporting. I mean, the fact that God's righteousness is revealed in the gospel is more important than Paul's enthusiasm about the gospel. Good grief. And yet, those massive realities down here are supporting his eagerness. So if you say every sermon has to have the main point of the text, you may be always preaching on things that are less important. You don't have to have the main point of your sermon be the main point of the text. The main point of the sermon here might be the righteousness of God is revealed from faith to faith. Or the main point might be the gospel is the power of God unto salvation. Or the main point might be, I'm never ashamed of the gospel. Or the main point might be, I'm not ashamed, that is, I'm eager to preach the gospel to you. But here's the catch. And I hope I can win back those who've just been disappointed by what I said. You got to make clear to your people as you preach on any one of those how the text works. You show them that the main point in Paul's mind was to support his eagerness to preach the gospel. You show them how that works with the next statement, that he's not ashamed. You show his shamelessness or his freedom from shame by the power of the gospel. And you show the power of the gospel from the righteousness of God. It may take you 4 weeks to do that. So show them, but then tell them we're focusing in this sermon on the main point of the power of the gospel. Or you might feel your people need to be freed from shame, and you spend the lion's share of your sermon talking about problems with why we're ashamed of the gospel and how this text should help us not be ashamed of the gospel. So my answer to the question is, when you're structuring your sermon from all of those insights into the meaning of the words like gospel and righteousness and shame and eagerness and all the logical connections like because, you do not have to make your main point the same main point Paul has. Nor, I would say, do you need to follow slavishly the order of his structure. I mean, he built his from main point to subpoint, right? You might go exactly the reverse direction and turn the becauses into therefores. So your sermon might be, point 1 in my sermon, the righteousness of God is revealed in it, in the gospel. Point 2, therefore, the gospel is the power of God unto salvation. Point 3, therefore, I'm never ashamed of the gospel. Point 4, therefore, let's be eager to preach the gospel. You don't have to follow the order or the structure. The structure governs the points that you make. It's not identical to the point that you make. And the last thing I would say in general comments about preparing sermons is that woven through all of your reading, all of your scribbling, all of your defining, all of your analyzing, all of your structuring is the repeated question, so what? In other words, you're putting yourself in the position of those people who you're about to speak to, only you feel the same thing yourself. So what? What difference does this make that the gospel is the power of God unto salvation? What difference does it make that I can be free from shame? What difference? And until you feel how unbelievably and gloriously relevant this is in the so what way for your people, you'll probably sound pedantic and academic. You won't have an urgency about it that convinces them by your very demeanor and explanation and exaltation. This is really important for you. So weave the so what's into your preparation, which leaves me with one question that I'll save for next time. Okay, I've got a whole lot of notes here. I've got a lot of ideas. I see some structure. Should I write it out in a manuscript? Or should I just have some kind of outline that I take? Or should I memorize the whole thing? What should I do? Let's go there next time.